What do you think? Pretty good offseason so far? Pretty memorable?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're listening to the show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcast, this show is always free, and the show always appreciates your support. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on, and you can get started today. I know it officially started during the 2023 season, but one of the most memorable off-season moments has been the addition of USC's new defensive staff. So yes, there was a little bit of a precursor at the end of the year. Got rid of Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, and it's made this offseason something to watch, something to keep us entertained, keep us glued in. The result, like I said, there's been a lot of hope for this upcoming season because of USC's new defensive identity. Antonlynn, his departure from UCLA, coming to USC. I mean, it got the offseason started off just the right way, right? You want to consider the bowl season part of the offseason? Miller Moss and the USC Trojans got everything started off the right way. But we'll leave the Holiday Bowl in part of the season. We knew that once Alex Grinch was fired and they went out and got Antonlynn, USC was reshaping their defensive coaching staff. By the time Eric Henderson was brought on board, it was clear, right? Coach Riley said defense was going to be priority number one going forward, building this team. So far, so good. We can hold him to those words. Now, since it is the Memorial Day holiday weekend, I thought, it would be cool to remember. Obviously, we want to take a moment or two to remember why we celebrate Memorial Day. Hopefully, you've all done that during this weekend. But then, after you've done that, if you haven't, take a moment. I'll wait for you. Take a few moments to remember some of the best offseason moments that USC football's had so far to date. It was a long offseason to go. We're just now heading into summer. But I put together a list of a few, and I'm sure I'm glossing over them. Whatever you thought was memorable, hit me up in the comments section. Talk to me. Be a part of the program. So, right off the bat, one of the first things I remember was Zachariah Branch, freshman phenom. He won the Jet Award, which is presented to the nation's most outstanding return specialist. The Jet Award has been given annually since 2011, and voting is done by members of the Football Writers Association of America and former award winners. So Branch is actually the second USC Trojan to win it. Adoree Jackson was the other one. He did that back in 2016. This past season, Zachariah led the nation in punt returns. He averaged almost 21 yards per attempt, 20.8. He finished number 3 in combined punt and kickoff return yards, 774. And he also returned a punt and a kickoff for a touchdown. Both of those coming in the first 3 games of his college career. Crazy. So, Zachariah joins Adoree Jackson and then Curtis Conway as the only 3 USC players since 1971 with a punt return, a kickoff return, and a receiving touchdown in the same season. Think about that. Think about all the players who have come through USC, who have marched down that tunnel onto the field. 3 guys since 1971 to do that. Zachariah is a special player. He's also the first true freshman to be named a first-team All-American. And that happened when he was named first-team returner by Sporting News, USA Today, and Pro Football Focus. He was also named to the second team by the Walter Camp and the Football Writers Association of America. He's the only freshman to appear on either the first or second team for any of those publications. So kudos. And again, this is why so many fans are excited to see what Zachariah can do as a sophomore. Caleb Williams being selected number 1 overall. I mean, what? That helped the Trojans. it helped with the optics, with the perception, and USC's history, the tradition, keeps USC as the school providing that has pumped out the most number 1 overall draft selections in the NFL. USC truly is NFLU. Oh, I wasn't going to let this one pass by. Reggie Bush, USC getting their Heisman back. That did not suck during this offseason. Yeah, about time. It was long overdue. And you know what? The fact that and using my finger quotes here, other cheaters were going to bat and make it happen behind the scenes for Reggie, that only added to the entertainment and what made it so memorable, what made it so special. I mentioned Eric Henderson's name earlier. He's made an impact since he stepped on campus, since he took over the job as one of USC's defensive line coaches. Since he's arrived, USC has landed a couple of defensive linemen from the state of Georgia. They flipped 5-star Justice Terry from the Georgia Bulldogs to USC. They also got Isaiah Gibson to commit that same weekend. And then for good measure, because 3 is always better than 2, right? They got Gus DeVos Cordova to jump on a board. He got on. That all happened following one unofficial visit weekend. That was a pretty special time happening in March. I mean, we were looking forward to the transfer portal this spring. The transfer portal started out like a bat out of hell in December. That first window that opened up, you got the Arnold brothers from Oregon State, Achille at safety, Mascarenas at middle linebacker. You got the 2 guys from UCLA, Kamari Ramsey at safety, John Humphrey, cornerback. They even added a couple of SEC defensive line guys in that early transfer portal window. You had Nate Clifton, Vanderbilt, Isaiah Rakes, Texas A&M. Now, one of the more forgettable moments was when Rakes decided to sneak off in the middle of the spring camp night, and he ran back to the SEC. He's now at Auburn. So I talked about, the December transfer portal, the first one that opened up. The spring portal, not so much. That's what's made it kind of memorable. Look, the whole Jaden Mayava recruitment, that was interesting to watch. Quarterback. I mean, think about it. At first, he was going from UNLV saying, Lincoln Riley, I'm not going to come play for you. I'm going to go to Georgia. Sometime shortly thereafter, he changed his mind. I think we know why, but, we'll give the benefit of the doubt that he wants to be coached up by Lincoln Riley. Nevertheless, USC was fighting to get a second scholarship quarterback. Well, actually, a third scholarship quarterback on the roster. And I'm not sure where it ranks on the memorable list for the offseason, but I got to look. Kyle Ford's return to USC and his apology, that made my list. I mean, literally, my bad. I'm back. Something else that's been memorable this offseason, including this spring. Again, we talked about the spring transfer portal window. Well, it's the lack of defensive tackles and offensive tackle guys lining up to come play at USC. I mean, that made my list, but again, for the wrong reasons. We were all anticipating that the floodgates were going to open up. Coach Riley said it. For every one guy that leaves, Isaiah Rakes, there's 100 guys lining up that want to come. You might have been exaggerating a little bit. And I suppose the biggest news so far this offseason is what I talked about on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC. Starting in 2025, the universities, USC included, they can start paying players directly They can make them employees, hire them, put them on contract. I did the math, okay? If one number that's been floated around is a $20 million, an annual salary cap of $20 million. Like I said, I did the math. You divide $20 million amongst 85 scholarship players, that comes out to 235,000 plus roughly per individual. Is this the way? Is this how it's going to be? Look, change is neither good or bad. It's how you handle the change. But, one thing I'm thinking about is this going to be one of the things that, I don't know, does that kill the transferring that's been going on? Will the universities paying players, having them under contract, so to speak, will that kill the transfer? It's something we can think about. We can talk about on another episode of Locked on USC. But first, we're going to talk about this. And then in the next segment, we're going to talk about which position group needs to step up the most. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win all for yourself. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on the point spreads, the money lines. You like player prop bets? Jump on it. And they got a whole bunch more that you can do over there at FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, catching up on the scores, but then all of a sudden you're turning down the volume because someone's screaming and yelling? Make the switch to Locked on Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. And it's streaming for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Which position group needs to step up the most this season for USC? Is it the running backs or is it the tight ends? Trick question. Don't answer yet. USC's offensive bread and butter, I think everyone would agree, it's probably their passing game. USC has a luxury. Lincoln Riley, one of the greatest offensive minds in college football right now. They've always got a good quarterback waiting in the bullpen. And wide receivers, look, there's a reason why USC is known as wide receiver U. Whether they're recruited, whether they transfer in, they're going to end up in the NFL. So quarterbacks, wide receivers, USC is going to be fine there. You want them to step up and take the next step from what we saw in the Holiday Bowl, but that's not the position group I'm worried about. Neither one of those. The running backs, the tight ends, they serve multiple roles. They obviously are part of the offensive game plan. I mean, they catch the ball out of the backfield if you're running back. Tight ends, we ask them to run some routes. And the running backs can actually help open up the passing game by running the ball effectively, efficiently. But neither group, running back or tight end, has, at least in my opinion, has been used to its maximum potential so far. Not in the first 2 years that Lincoln Riley's been coaching this team. Hopefully that's going to change with USC moving into the big conference this season. More importantly, both groups are asked to block too. So that's why running back and tight end isn't the groups I was referring to that needs to step up the most. Yeah, you caught up to me. Well, I'm talking about the offensive line. In order for any of this to work, the passing game, the running game, the tight end slipping out in the open field, helping out. The guys up front have to protect those 5 guys on the offensive line. They have to open holes. And they can't make mistakes on a consistent basis. You're going to make a mistake. It's going to happen. Can you imagine going an entire season without an illegal procedure call? Has that ever happened? Doubtful. As long as the projected starting five can stay healthy, stay on the field, Miller Moss, if Jaden Mayava's in there, if Jake Jensen's in there, quarterbacks, the running back should be able to execute. Elijah Page, left tackle. Emmanuel Prignon, left guard. Jonah Monheim, center. Alani Noah, right guard. Mason Murphy, right tackle. If those guys can hold serve, stay on the field, be a part of every point, then everything's going to be okay. I get it. Look, some of you are probably thinking, Mark's going to talk about the defensive line. Well, they have to step up too. And again, I know everybody is uber focused on the defense and the defensive line. But the offensive line got zero transfer portal help this season. None. First time in 2 years. Good thing, bad thing. So if there is help on the way, because again, there's still time to add players to the roster. I think everyone will probably agree it's not going to be an impact type of player, not a starter. There just weren't that many available to begin with, and I know we goof around about it, joke about it a little bit. USC is kind of getting all their ducks in a row, all their eggs in a basket for 2025. You've got talked about the salary cap. It's going to be coming into play next year. NIL is looking to take care of this next incoming recruiting class. But because no one is coming, we know what we have on the offensive line in that room. Those guys have got to step up. They weren't as good as they could have been last year. And I got it. We've talked about it before on the show. There was a lot of moving around. The guys they brought in through the transfer portal, they helped out, but they didn't really come together. They weren't that cohesive unit. They didn't find that chemistry together that everyone was hoping they'd have. So this year's offensive line, it's young, it's talented, it's inexperienced. The guys behind him are even more young, they're even more inexperienced. I mean, your starters, you've got Emmanuel Prignon, who is his fourth year in college now. Jonah Monheim, obviously the leader of the group. Mason Murphy has got a veteran presence over there at right tackle. We're waiting for Gino Quinones to get fully healthy. Again, another veteran first player that USC needs to step up. So we're going to see what happens. But on today's episode of Locked on USC, the position group that needs to step up the most, it's the offensive line. Because if you want that passing game to work, if you want Miller Moss to feel comfortable, you want the running backs to go crazy, if you want to see Woody Marks running all over everybody, especially against LSU, those five guys up front, they got to get the job done. Agree? Do you disagree? Well, let me know. Hey, if you're watching the show on YouTube, you like it, part of the Locked On Network, Locked On USC, we're coming at you 5 times a week, even during the off season. So do me a favor. If you like the show, even if you don't, I know you do, become a subscriber if you're watching on YouTube. Smash that thumbs up. It means a lot. And click that bell notification button. And that way you're not going to miss one episode during this long off season. It's not as long as you think. I'm going to get you all the way there. All right. All right. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it's Memorial Day weekend. And I'm going to try and get through this. So bear with me. Look, what do we do on Memorial Day? We remember those who gave their life, right? Who defended this country, make all this possible for all of us. Well, we lost somebody today. You're watching this episode of Locked on USC. I don't know what day you're watching. Hopefully you're watching it on Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day weekend. We lost a friend, Bill Walton. He was a UCLA Bruin. I don't care. That guy had more passion for life than almost anyone I've ever seen or known in my life. I don't know Bill Walton. I consider him an acquaintance. I've met him a couple times. I've talked to him a couple times inside inside the Galen Center for the USC-UCLA basketball games. And look, he played for two teams that I hate the most when it comes to my fandom and that competitive spirit, the Bruins, the Boston Celtics. Bill often spoke about the competitive spirit, and he did it in only the way that a poet could do it. Bill was a poet. The way he spoke, it, it was hard to listen to at times, but what was coming out, what was behind his words, it meant a lot. And it was ironic considering that, a lot of people might not know this. Bill was born with a stammering problem. And he got over it, obviously. I mean, and when you look what he ended up doing when his feet stopped working playing basketball. He became known as one of the best announcers ESPN had to offer, the Pac-12 network. He loved what he did. So despite being a UCLA Bruin, despite being a Boston Celtic, you had to appreciate the way he played the game, the way he attacked life. He had a zeal, a zest for it. He loved it. He was simply one of the best there was when he was healthy, playing basketball. Bill Walton passed away from complications of cancer. My everydayers, you might remember, a little over a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I asked you guys, keep Bill in your thoughts. He's not doing well. Time has come. Say a prayer. So, look, again, when he was healthy and he was in his prime playing basketball, college, in the pros, he was good. I mean, his Bruins got over on USC every time they played. And those Lakers-Celtics series, again, epic. He missed one of them. I think he missed one of those final series. He had feet problems at the end of his career. But even the regular season games, those were special too. I will always remember those games, especially the ones in the old Boston Garden. Jack Nicholson sitting way up there in the rafters. The energy, you could just tell. And Bill Walton waving the towel. Yeah, he loved the game. But I know I've talked about the Pac-12 dying and how much better off USC is now that they're going to the big conference. Bill Walton wanted none of that. None of it. He hated it. He loved the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12. To him, the Conference of Champions, it was personal. Yeah, the Conference of Champions. To a lot of us, it turned into a meme. And do me a favor. Don't ever try and play the drinking game when Bill Walton was calling a game. You will literally be passed out by halftime. The drinking game was every time Bill Walton mentioned the Conference of Champions, you got to take a drink. It's impossible. You cannot keep up. I never saw Bill play in person for UCLA. It was a little before my time. But dude won 2 national titles. He won 3 straight National College Player of the Year awards. And the dude was the number 1 overall draft pick. And for a reason. Again, go back to hit up YouTube when you're done watching the show. Go look up Bill Walton highlights. You're going to do this. Oh my God. That guy was really good. And again, I know he was hard to listen to at times. I commented on, there was times I had to turn off the volume because he would go off on this tangent that just left you wondering, what in the hell is Bill talking about today? But that was the beauty of Bill. That was what made him so special. And again, in his head, it was just a poem going off. So sometimes the words were coming out and we weren't sure what he was saying, but it was going on upstairs. And eventually you're like, oh, okay, that's what Bill meant. He eventually got to the point. his partner, Dave Pash, he was patient. He would get him there. He would lead him to water, so to speak. Again, that's what made Bill so special. He loved the Grateful Dead. He loved nature. He loved his life. He loved his family. Bill was a Bruin, but I think he loved USC. He talked about it. In fact, I think he secretly wanted to be a Trojan. Bottom line, we lost a good one. And look, I remember when I was told about his condition, like I said, a couple months ago, and I said, keep him in your thoughts. I didn't want to keep bringing it up because the person who told me didn't want, he said, Mark, just keep this to yourself, but let people know that they should think about it. So I just want to say, Big Red, thank you. I miss you. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. As you can see, getting a little emotional here. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.